All right, Magic Makers, buckle up because I just had like a little pre-talk with Elizabeth before we hopped on the call and we hit record. But girls, you are going to be in for a treat today. She has a story that you're going to be nodding along with. She had a very career that was just a lot. It was in a nonprofit about trauma, recovery, supporting victims. And as you can imagine, that comes at a relentless pace, but also just the emotional toll of just hearing those stories every single day. And a lot of you high capacity, high achieving, I need to get shit done women, she had to keep going until her body basically said, girlfriend, we can't do this anymore. The stress, the burnout, the chronic health issues. Like conventional medicine was like, oh, you're fine. Your labs look great. Go back to work. Rock on with your bad self. Elizabeth was like, no, I don't feel great. Something is wrong. And this research led her down to do more functional health, more functional diagnostic nutrition, where she really learned that it wasn't just like your CBC looked great. See you later. Really, how do you uncover all of these hidden opportunities and build personal protocols around it? With that said, she did have to shift her lifestyle. So it's not just take these three pills and calm in the morning. You still have to look at what is going on with your lifestyle so you're not constantly supplementing and chasing these symptoms. And that is how she was able to reclaim her energy, her clarity, and get a whole new sense of purpose in her life. And today we're going to talk about stress, burnout, and the whole thought of like I have to earn time to sit down. I have to earn time to like spend quality time with my family. Girlfriends, you do not. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's a pleasure to be here. What a great introduction.
Yeah, I felt like you were the perfect person because so many of the women who listen to this show have jobs like you had, right? These jobs where like there's a lot of pressure on them to perform. There are other
Yeah,
people counting on you. And that, for a while you're like, yeah, I got it. I got it. I got it. And then at some point you don't got it.
you don't. Yeah, yeah,
And so for you, at what point did you start to feel like, I don't got it?
yeah. There is a familiar progression that I see, and when I look back at myself, I followed it to the letter, and I see a lot of us following the same trajectory. So for me, I worked in a nonprofit that was dedicated to serving victims of domestic minor sex trafficking. So every phone call is life or death. Every phone, like nothing can be put on the back burner ever. And so that's sort of the environment that I was in. And I started to kind of show up less enthusiastically
Mm,
on a daily, have less focus, have less energy, have less enthusiasm. Um, and I think that this is a familiar place, this sort of beginning stage of burnout that a lot of us find ourselves. And we come to what I call this intersection of, am I sick or do I just
mm,
hate my life?
yeah,
Yeah. Um, and so we go to the doctor to find out if we're sick.
right. Because you're like, I can't
Yeah.
really hate my life, can I?
Right. Like I've never hated my life before. So, but here I am in the sort of the doldrums of early middle age. And, maybe this is what it is, or maybe I'm sick. So we go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to run a diagnostic test. And so the diagnostic test, as Kim alluded to, like what is the CBC? What are all these blood markers? Are there to say, do you have a disease? Because that's what doctors are trained in, is recognizing disease and interceding at that point when
Right.
it's catastrophic, when there's something that has a diagnosis code and an insurance code and like a standard of care that goes with it. But a lot of us find ourselves in this gray space between like, I'm not feeling well, but I'm not technically sick. And when we are in that gray space and we go to the doctor and we get the diagnostic test, his only response can be, I don't see any, like, you're not sick.
Right,
You're
right.
not sick. Yeah. But that doesn't mean we are well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the salient point that a lot of us don't don't know or have had to earn that knowledge through blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so other than like, am I feeling something or I just hate my life? Was there any other things like were you like not sleeping? Was like how are food? How was your mood? Like were there
Oh
other
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like,
So yes.
non,
So
subtle symptoms?
totally. So that was just the beginning. That was the beginning stages of burnout. And I
Mm,
think that's when like most of us go to the doctor and get this prognosis that we're fine, that it's just in our heads. Maybe take an antidepressant, maybe do this. So all right, you keep trudging along, you keep doing your thing, you keep subjecting yourself to massive amounts of stress every day, and then other things start to give way. So then you're not sleeping as well as you used to. Maybe you are hitting menopause early.
mm,
Maybe you're not, your digestion is going downhill. Maybe you're having a lot of hormonal symptoms. And so now you start looking around, asking people your age or people a little bit older, like, did you go through this? Like, what's going on with you? And the older people love it when you get here because they're like, welcome. This is aging.
right, exactly.
Yeah. And they're kind of secretly thrilled that you are joining this club. And there's no one out there who's like, actually, you should not be feeling this way. So let's kind of figure out like what's really going on. So it just sort of continues to get worse and worse and worse.
Mm,
And for me, it slid into chronic fatigue, where it wasn't until I got to the point where I couldn't digest anything and I couldn't be out of bed for more than 2 or 3 hours a day that I was like, all right, this is not in my head.
yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
is not in my head. This is physical and not showing up on any lab tests. So what do I do now? And I think the next step is probably also really familiar to a lot of your audience. We go into what I call the cycle of trial and error. It's
Mm,
like, let me listen to all the podcasts. Let me do all the
yes,
research. Let me take all the supplements that Instagram throws my way. Let me like try whatever.
right.
Yep. And so our sort of mentality here is like it's a single root cause. And if I can
Yes,
just like find it, then I'm going to be okay.
right. That one magic pill is going to like
Yes,
make all of the shit I feel right now just disappear.
totally. Yes. And we get this idea from several places. And one of them is that we've been trained that you can take a pill and everything will go away.
Yeah.
And that works in pharmacology because a pharmaceutical drug is nature times 10,000 or 100,000. Now, that comes with a bunch of chemicals and a bunch of things we don't want and some side effects, but it's generally strong enough that it can bust through a symptom without any other lifestyle modifications.
Right, right.
But then when we get into the natural world and we're like, oh, the corollary is a supplement, except that a supplement is like nature times 10 or nature times 20. It is
Right.
not powerful enough to bust through a symptom without also altering other things in your lifestyle.
Yeah, 1,000%. And you nailed it, especially now. So now you and I are talking about it. So my phone's listening, and there's going to be 500 supplements sold to me about stress. And if
Totally.
and marketers are smart, so they're going to hit on all of your buzzwords. Like, do you feel like tired, fatigue, this, and you're like, yeah, that's me, and you're gonna buy supplement X. And then
Yep.
supplement X is gonna then trigger someone else to be like, oh, if you bought supplement X, you're gonna need supplement Y.
Yeah.
And for many women, they don't think to themselves, well, maybe I should go to bed earlier, or maybe I should drink more water. Like that thought doesn't pop into their head.
Yep. It's and that's partly because from the time that we were able to understand what was going on, we've been sold this idea that like you can fix it with a pill. But once we sort of go to the natural side of things, where we say there is no pharmaceutical for this, I can only rely on supplementation, it's just never going to get us there.
Right.
And and the other point with supplementation is that it's going to make roughly 33% of us better,
Mm,
any given supplement. It's going to make roughly 33% of us worse,
yep.
and it's going to do nothing for roughly 33% of us. So then we're off to the next thing.
Yeah.
If we're part of the 66% that didn't feel anything or didn't feel enough or didn't feel it for long enough, now we're off to the next supplement or the gadget or the modality or the practitioner or the whatever it is. And that's where we wind up in this cycle of trial and error, where it's like, if I can just find the one thing, then I'm going to be aces.
Right.
Um, Yep. And
And
so for me, after I'd been in the cycle of trial and error for a few years, finding nothing that really solved it permanently, I decided, all right, I got to change my career. So I'm going to be a health coach. I'm just going to go be a health coach because obviously I'm, interested in my own healing. I'm interested in other people who are on this same journey. And I happened to go to a conference. I lived in Austin, Texas at the time, and I went to a conference where a bunch of different health coaching and practitioner programs were lined up side by side. And so I could like look at the curriculum, talk to the
yeah.
graduates, see who was smart, see what was going on there. And that is where I discovered FDN. So instead of just training me to make general recommendations for health the way that health coaches are trained, is to listen to your symptoms and to say, oh, well, that sounds like this or that or the other. So you need to do this, that, or the other. Um, and again, those general recommendations going to work for 33%
Mhm.
of us, going to make 33% of us worse, and going to make no difference at all for 33% of us.
Exactly.
Yep. And so we've got to have some data to get more precise recommendations to because sometimes a symptom can be the same for a low hormone versus a high hormone, for low immune system versus immune system that's redlining. Like it can look the same in various individuals. So we've got to have data behind it. And so when I got to FDN and FDN said, hey, we teach you how to do functional testing and write all natural protocols based on that in a bunch of different areas, not just supplementation. So we
Mm.
have what's called our DRESS protocol, which is diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And it's not until you incorporate several lifestyle changes that you're really going to see money back in your body's bank account.
Right, right, right. Yeah. And you nailed it. Like, so the last letter was supplement,
Mm-hmm.
right? The last letter. So it's like most people, and if we break down the word to its root, it's to supplement something else. It's not
Supplemental, yes.
right. It's not called a replacement.
No,
It's called a
no.
supplement. And,
Yeah.
I also feel like especially in the US, we've been sold a bill of goods because right now, if I turn on the TV, I can probably wait 15 minutes and there's going to be an ad for some pill that's going to magically take away whatever it is that I don't even know I have.
Yep.
But if I take this pill, if I have it, bing, bada boom, bada bing, that is gone.
So just go to your doctor and ask for it by name. Yeah.
Right, exactly, right. But the thing, speaking of those ads, the thing that always like blows my mind is like, and if you find yourself allergic to this, like, how would I know if I'm not taking it?
I know, right? So that's like this list of horrible side effects that they just sort of like speed through while somebody's skipping through the flower gardens.
Right. They're like, oh my God, my psoriasis is over. It's wonderful. But if you're allergic to it, and if it grows a second eye,
It's
take
like chronic diarrhea, liver failure, blindness, and you're like, what
you're like, oh, I think I would rather itch for the rest of my life.
definitely.
But yeah, and I get it because like I want that magic pill too. I want the magic like when clients come to me, like I want the magic pill too. I too, just like you, like I've gone down the rabbit hole, and trust me, the rabbit hole sucks
Yeah.
because you're spending more money than you should. You're chasing that magic potion, and half this time you're just peeing it down the toilet.
Yep. And it's just not making a difference for you at all because either it wasn't the right thing or it was the right thing, but it wasn't accompanied by other powerful lifestyle changes.
Yeah, I love that. And so like for you, as you were kind of going through this, like what was kind of like that number one like lifestyle change that you're like, oh, I guess they were right.
Yeah. So for me, once I got data, because when you sign up to be an FDN trainee in our training program, you get to run all the labs on yourself. So you become your first client.
Right.
And suddenly I'm looking at these functional tests and I'm like, oh, I have crazy cortisol issues. Like it's super, super high in the morning and non-existent for the rest of the day, except it bumps up at night when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Hmm.
And then my sex hormones are
In the
absolutely in the
tanker.
toilet, which is why my ambition and my motivation and my desire to like go out and crush it gone.
Mm.
It's sort of like that explains why I'm at this intersection of do I hate my life? No, I have low sex hormones.
Right.
That's really the core issue. And so for me, I was, I sort of said like, why is it that all this stuff comes up on functional tests, but not on diagnostic tests? And, and I really want to articulate this clearly for your audience because I think the word functional is thrown around a lot and not really defined, and
Yes.
people don't know what it means. So a diagnostic test is asking the question, what disease do you have?
Hmm.
And if you don't have a disease, you're going to get screwed by this because the doctor's not going to be able to, their hands are tied. There's
Right.
no diagnosis, there's no course of action if there's no diagnosis. So a functional test is different because what a functional test is asking is out of 100% function, how much has been lost and where? It's a radically different question than what disease do you have?
Right.
And so even if you are a person that feels relatively good and you just want to feel better, something's going to come up on a functional test. And if you're a person that has a longstanding health issue like I was, like chronic fatigue, then bunches of things are coming up on the functional tests. And so, first of all, that was real validation because I know what you're going through out there when you are tired, when you are
Mm.
defeated, and when you've been to see a bunch of doctors who all say, I think you're just depressed. It takes a hella strength to advocate for yourself and to know in
Yes.
your heart that that is not the answer,
Right.
that something else is going on. And it is a radical act of self love to keep looking.
Yes, it is. And it's really challenging because, you and I both have been on that side where you're just kind of like, well, maybe they are right. Because you're just like you've kissed
Totally.
you've kissed like so many frogs. And
Hmm.
then, by the and then at the time that I was having my challenges, I was in my early 30s. And so and I was like, well, should we test my hormones? And like, you're too young. Well, what,
Yeah.
like, what's the age? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I know I could drink at 21. Like, what's the age that I'm not like too young to test my hormones?
To look
Because
at your hormones. Yeah. Yeah.
just like you, like I burnt myself to a crisp, and that motivation, that drive, all of that was gone. And when they asked me, was I depressed? I was like, no. I'm like, I'm not. I just don't like not having drive and being depressed are in two separate buckets.
It's true, but it's not a distinction that doctors know how to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Um, so for me, actually being armed with the data to say,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is real was so empowering. And then I could go about sort of treating myself as an experiment
Yeah.
and to be like, okay, what happens if I change my diet? And so at FDN, we believe that there is no one diet for all humans, because if there was, we would have been known it already and
Right.
everyone would be on it and everyone would be super healthy. But the answer to this problem is that it's different for everybody based on your genetic mix, which we're also mixed now. Who the heck knows?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we administer a questionnaire to sort of nail down your macronutrient ratio. Either you're a carb type, or you're a protein type, or you're a
Mm.
person who's sort of does well on equal carbs and protein. Um, and carb types to me are like aliens. I didn't even know that they existed. But yeah, I'm a protein type. But there are carb types out there for sure who
I
do
know
not do
those.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, those are unique unicorns.
Yep. And so getting on sort of the right diet, I think I had, gone for low fat and
Yes.
low calories because I was gaining weight and all the things. And then I learned that like, oh, right, that's not actually what my body wants. My body wants more fat and more protein to be able to really thrive. And then sleep was a mess for me when I was in chronic fatigue because I was sleeping at all the wrong times and not
Mm.
sleeping at the right times and just needing to rest a lot, but not actually sleeping, not getting restorative sleep. So taking some steps to like correct the bedtime and get up when get light in my eyes, get the circadian rhythm going, put more water in my life, as you mentioned at the top of the show. And then for exercise, even in chronic fatigue, I was still pushing it. And I know all you ladies out there are doing that.
Of course,
Uh, yeah,
I'm Susie Exerciser. I still got to go to the gym.
right. And so I'm like, trying to keep up with all of my peers who are doing CrossFit and all these other things. And so I was just sort of driving myself into the ground. Um, and what one of the big things I learned at FDN is that we have good stress, and that's called eustress. And then we have bad stress, and that's called distress. And exercise should be a eustress. It should be putting money in the bank and helping us be more metabolically flexible and building up our bodies and that sort of thing, unless it's too intense. Then it becomes a distress. Then we're spending money out of our vital reserve bank account to get through the workout, and then there's nothing left for healing.
Yeah,
So I stopped exercising intensively. I started, just walking, just
yeah.
walking. Yeah, which to me, I didn't even recognize that that counted as exercise.
You're like, that got me from point A to point B. That wasn't
Yeah, like
exercise.
that's a movement. I'm not breaking a sweat. Like, what's going on? I'm not lifting anything heavy. I'm not pushing a tire uphill or, whatever
Right. Like,
it
if I'm not doing
is.
that, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of my
yeah,
women can relate to that. And so for you, and it's a great, I love that you were experiencing it. So like for you, how did you kind of come to grips with, okay, now I'm starting to see the writing on the wall
yeah,
and my lifestyle isn't conducive to what's going on with me for right now.
yeah,
So how did you kind of come to like that like mental place of like I can't be CrossFitting like I like to,
yeah.
or any of the other things I like to, like, so how did you kind of pull yourself back without feeling that like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose all my gains?
Yep. Well, I had to just sit with myself and get real for a second
Mm,
and say, let's just say, for example, I do lose all of my gains. If I gain some other stuff, is it worth it?
yeah.
Um, and so I'm very emotional, but I'm also very logical. And so I just
Mm,
looked at myself like an experiment, and I was like, let's try something for 30 days.
yes.
Let's try exercising less for 30 days. And if I change nothing else, then I can really see like, does this have impact on my life or does it not? And so that's how I sort of set about doing things in all five categories of lifestyle recommendations, is just sort of say like, okay, if I'm going to change one variable at a time, I'm going to give it 30 days and I'm going to be real honest with myself about the results.
You're probably one of like several guests that I've had on the show, and we're talking about like, our people, our old life to our new life. And everyone always talked about it. It has to be an experiment
Yeah.
because, we all kind of cut our teeth in the like no pain, no gain era of fitness. And, myself included, I was like, if I give myself 30 days to do this, I can always go back.
Yeah.
And like just that like rationale, like you try to be like logical. You're like, I am a logical person, but like
Yeah.
emotion is like whispering in your ear.
Always. Always. Yes. But I think that sort of like 30-day escape hatch is helpful because we can all do anything for 30 days.
Yeah.
And and even if I lose, some muscle mass or whatever, 30 days isn't crazy. Like I can get it back if that wasn't the right move for me. If I stop eating gluten for 30 days, that's not too crazy. If I stop drinking alcohol for 30 days, that's not too crazy. If I eliminate um, uh, processed sugar from my diet for 30 days, it's not too crazy. So I feel like 30 days is like a really good sort of escape hatch to be like, I'm not committing to this permanently. And I think that makes a difference for people.
Yeah. And but it also is like, okay, after 30 days, I evaluate. It's where like
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think we've been indoctrinated that like if you do something, this is what you do for life.
For life. Yeah.
It's like, for
Yeah.
if you think back to like when CrossFit was like the thing, everyone
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to be a CrossFitter for life and I'm going to be paleo for life. And
Yeah.
then a lot of the OG CrossFitters and paleoites are all like, well,
Totally. And And I think women in particular have this mentality more than men, where women are like, okay, this is my exercise routine. Now I just do this for
For
forever,
life, right?
for life. But men, I think, who kind of grew up in sports understand that there's an in season and an off season, and that those two things are different, and that there has to be an off season for recovery and for repair and for resting so that you can then be in season again.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I dated an athlete in my sort of late 30s, and he had been an athlete all of his life, and he just like there was a very set off season. It's like it started in October and it went through like the end of January, and I was like, interesting. Like you're an athlete, you don't work out during this time. You don't like you kind of sit and hibernate and watch a lot of Netflix and just like rest it up and play video games and eat junk. Interesting. And that was very, very eye-opening.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's a lot of the conversations I have with my clients is that like we have a season and it's kind of like, and I try to talk about athletes like, it's like if I'm a football player for 16 weeks, I'm not going to the gym the way I would if I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of started to get through to people like, oh, so I don't have to go balls to the wall 52 weeks a year.
All the time. Yeah.
Right. Like every workout isn't like the Olympics is tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I think that's also a really valuable sort of experiment to run on yourself is like if I do have an on season or an off season, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
look like a pro athlete's, but what does it look like for me? And for a lot of women who are still cycling, for example, you're going to want to put carbs in the week before your period, for example. So this is why sort of paleo or keto doesn't generally work long term for women, is
Right.
because we get really, really low on carbs right when we need them.
Yeah.
So just sort of making accommodation for your body and not thinking like, okay, if I add this thing, I'm adding it forever.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm grateful that you brought that up. And I really want everyone listening to be like, okay, like 30 days like goes in the blink of an eye if you think about how life is. And so if you started 30 days right freaking now, like boom, it'll by the time you like think about it, it'll be like day 15, and then time you think about it again, it'll be day 30. But I really like that. And it's also just like you said, data, right? So we have to start collecting data. Everyone who's listening to the show is wearing something. They're wearing an Oura ring, they're wearing a Apple Watch, a Fitbit, or some piece of thing that's collecting data. But do we use it, right? Like it's like I have
Yeah.
my Oura ring, but I'm like, what do you use with the data? Like, and then I want you to use data not to judge, like just to kind of be like awareness that like just cycles. Like right now, I don't really sleep more than 6 hours right now. It's a cycle. So I'm kind of like, what's going on? Because this is not normal for me. And it's just more like inquisitive than like, I must get 7 hours, put a brick on me so I don't get out of bed.
Yep. And for me, I know that my particular rhythm is that everybody has this big surge of energy in the new year. Not me, because it's dark, it's cold, and this is not the time for me to push. And
Yeah.
so now that we're coming into spring and it's staying lighter later and it's getting lighter earlier and it's warming up a bit, now I'm starting to sort of come into like my creative time and my time to push and my time to produce.
Yeah.
That's my rhythm. Yeah. That's not everybody's rhythm. Some people, oh, I'm really down for the new year and I love that energy. But we've got to sort of honor that we can't be 100% every day all the time, and that what is our particular rhythm.
Oh my God. So, guys, I have like we have never spoken before today. Everything you just said, did I not do a podcast on this telling you about when to push, when to pull back, when to hold the line? Like right here, right here. So, this is like third party, like random stranger off the street that I just pulled in, and she just said the same exact thing. And so, I have a lot of clients who like they have kids in like all sorts of sports. And I'm like, you can't keep the pace if you're driving Susie to hockey and, so and so to dance, and you can't do that.
No, no. You've got to like, and I think this is a bit far afield, but one of my passions is really understanding the intersection between health and belonging to a strong community.
Yes.
Yep. And I think that in the modern day Western world, we've sort of everybody lives in their single family home.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is duplicating massive amounts of effort where we all have to have our own car and our own house, our own childcare, and our own 401ks. And I have to have all of my own tools, and I'm never going to ask anybody to like borrow a thing. So it, it's it, it's you get to this place where you do have to drive your kid around to everything all day, every day, instead of being able to rely on a community network of
Right.
like all our kids go to this thing on this day. So I'll drive Mondays and you drive Tuesdays and you drive Wednesdays so that people get time back.
Yeah, agreed. And I think about like, when we were kids, that like that's what we did. Like if I went somewhere, like your mom picked up, my mom dropped off. Like
Yeah,
so it wasn't like reliant on like one person to like get you there and back.
absolutely. Yeah. And in the city where there's like public transit, letting I saw 12, 13-year-olds in New York taking the subway. Doesn't happen out in the suburbs, that's a different life. But yeah, just having sort of these other outlets for managing the kids' schedules, other than it has to be me all the time, every day, dropping off and picking up and dropping off and picking up and dropping off and picking up, and I don't get to do anything for myself.
Right. And one of the questions I was going to ask you was about hidden stressors. And right there, that's a hidden stressor. Like you don't think it's, but it's like texting, like I'm here at work and I'm like, oh crap. I gotta like wrap this up so I can get in the car to drive and pick up, Johnny or Jimmy to wherever they need to go to or make the phone call to the doctor or what have you. And we don't think about that as
And what
stressful.
is your quality of life in the car? Because I'm guarantee you're driving at peak times where, everybody just has a knot in their stomach and it's the most stressful thing ever. Yeah.
Right. And even at the stoplight, you're like, oh, why did the light turn? I was on a good roll. And or
Yeah.
you're throwing food at your kids on the way home and you're throwing a
Mm,
full handful in your mouth as you're because
yeah.
it's you're getting home
Yep.
at 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's not conducive to like sitting around a dinner table together and being able to check in with your kids. Like, how was your day? What did you do today? What obstacles are you running into? What kind of support do you need? And then it just sort of leads to that degradation
Mm.
of community and belonging on the whole.
Yeah, and it's as more people are doing research, especially on brain health, as the occurrence of dementia, Alzheimer's, all the varying memory
Hmm.
diseases are popping up. One of the biggest things that they're talking about is that like cognitive having conversations, having
Social
community,
component. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
socialization. And it's true as like, people retire, like I don't have the work outlet to force me to be social.
Yeah.
And if I don't live in a community that I can walk, I'm by myself a lot.
Yeah.
Unless I go to a
Absolutely.
store or I play, I play pickleball or whatever the hell you decide to pick up if you do that.
Yeah, like I work at home. FDN is a virtual company, so I work at home. If I didn't have a dog, I wouldn't know any of my neighbors.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because but I've come to Jesus that walking is not just something you do to get from A to B. And
Hmm.
because I walk in the neighborhood, I know my neighbors because my neighbors like I'm always out and about. And it's like even though we don't there's a couple of neighbors that I do have conversation with, but for the most part, I see you, you see me, and you're like, okay, she belongs here. And you just kind of
Yeah.
wave. But there
Yeah.
are other neighbors who like I do have longer conversations with. But it forces me to leave my house.
Yeah, and that is important. And like you said, pickleball and it's just like your kids have extracurriculars, you need them too. You
Right.
need to have people around who have shared interests and have people around who are at the same phase of life and are dealing with the same questions that you are dealing with about, what makes an impactful life? Who am I? and how am I showing up in the world, and how is that different from what I had dreamed of?
Right. So as people are listening here, and I think we've given them several examples that you can see maybe this is me. This is how I'm running my life. This is how I either feel right now or I have felt. So now I know what the hell that feeling was.
Was, yeah.
How, now they're looking like, but girl, I'm still juggling. I'm juggling my work, my family,
Yep.
my aging parents, all the things.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm not seeing the buildup of this chronic stress. Like, so what are some of kind of like the more telltale signs that like stress is really like getting a chokehold on your body?
Yep. I would say that those of you who are in your 30s and 40s and you're seeing gray hair, big sign.
Mm,
Big sign. Especially if it's not sort of genetic.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but if your mom was not gray by the age of 40, but you are starting to see the gray hair coming, that is a huge sign that vital
Mm,
reserve is being lost, that there just isn't the vitality to put into hair anymore. Our bodies are very clever with how
mm-hmm.
they deal with energy. And so I want you all to think about your bodies as having a bank account.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, that you go on vacation to some sort of tropical destination and you've spent a bunch of time in the sun. You're going to come back home with darker skin because your body has decided it needed to put resource towards protecting your skin from the sun.
Mm,
But when you get back and you start working inside again, you're going to lose that color because your body is not going to put resource there continually to maintain that color when there's no need, when there's no sort of external pressure from the environment to say, okay, we need this for protection. It's very clever with like where it spends money in the immediate and then where it cuts off spending when that's no longer viable. It wants to save money because we have to have external input to make energy. And
right.
that's the big question mark is there going to be resource out there? Is there going to be food? Is there going to be temperate weather? Is there going to be water? Is there going to be whatever? And so the body is very, very clever with how it uses energy. And so when you start to see like the gray hair coming, that is the body saying, I can't fully fund this like youthful, wonderful head of hair that we used to have.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then you might see acne come about, and that's your body saying, I can't fully fund either hormones or detoxification
Mm,
well. And so we've got toxins backing up because the body is saying, instead of running the system at 100%, let me run it like we're on a like your cell phone is on low power mode. The
yeah.
screen will like light up at 30% and not for very long. That's now your detox system. And so instead of fully getting rid of toxins, it's shoving them into fat and brain and bone and tissue. And now you're getting acne. Now you're feeling mentally slow. Now you're feeling bloated and that type of thing. Then I would say mood is major.
Yes.
Mood is major. When you start to lose motivation, when you start to say, I don't really care about this the way that I used to, like it's boring and I'm just tired and I can't focus well, that is a major sign that sex hormones are not being fully funded. And a lot of us think it's just depression or it's middle age or it's
Yeah.
that time of life or we just need an antidepressant or like we need a career change or whatever. No, this is a chronic underfunding of sex hormones because the
Mm,
body is essentially saying, we don't need to worry about reproduction right now. We don't have the money to spend on that.
right.
So cut the funding there. And then you're like, I just don't feel like doing it today. Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not it's not because you're depressed. It's because your hormones, especially testosterone and that type of thing, testosterone is your sort of like go out and crush it hormone. Um, when you start losing testosterone, then you don't want to go out and crush it anymore.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
and as you talk about hormones, especially, as I get into that 35 plus age, my hormones are already on their own roller coaster ride.
Shifting.
So
Yeah.
if I now am already now my body's just by natural definition is going through this roller coaster ride, getting us ready for menopause.
Hmm.
And then I throw the tsunami of stress on top of it,
Hmm.
I'm gonna feel all sorts, all sorts of things.
You are going to feel all sorts of things. And you might even see menopause happen too early
Mm,
because the body is saying, I can't actually fund menstruation. Menstruation is very costly.
yeah,
And I think part of that is also sort of the way that we talk to our own bodies when we are menstruating. Because I think every cell in your body is listening to your thoughts at all times. So if your thought is like, God, I hate my period. Oh, it's awful. Like, I
right.
can't stand this, blah, blah, blah. Then your body's gonna be like, okay, let's shut it down early.
Right. And it's, and it's kind of like this yin and this yang, because as you're having these conversations in your mind, you're probably at the age where you're like, oh, I want a child. Right. So it's
Yeah,
like you're saying, yes, I want a child, but at the same time, you're kind of silently saying, no, I don't.
yeah,
So it's kind of this like yin and this yang. And some of the women who are listening to this, they're probably like, I love my job. I don't feel stressed at all, but I also just can't, like, the things my family does that they probably always done, my mood, like they just make me batshit crazy now. And I'm like, and they've always done the things.
yep. Yep, like being super irritable, super quick to anger. Yes, these are all sort of signs that the hormones are getting depleted or they're not balancing each other out. And there are some imbalances that need to be dealt with for sure. And I
Yeah,
think that the mood stuff is really subtle. It's really subtle. And sometimes we can't see it in ourselves, and it's our partner that's like, you're really irritable. Like, what's going on? Um, and you want to be like, oh, no, it's you.
you're like, do you really want
Yeah.
to poke the bear right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and then sort of looking at, because it really does feel like when you're in this spiral going down, that like you are depressed or that
Yeah,
you don't like what you're doing anymore or you just don't have the motivation. It's really hard to kind of parse that sometimes, um, from uh, from other physical symptoms that you might be having, to kind of say to yourself, oh, this is not, yeah, I'm having a bunch of mood and emotional symptoms,
right,
but
right,
it's a
right,
symptom. It's not actually being generated from my mind or my circumstances.
right. And so if someone's listening to this, and I am a big believer in functional testing. So, where would I start? Do I find someone like FDN? Do I go to a naturopath? Like, where do I kind of start my journey from? I always tell my clients, I like the hybrid of, like, yes, you need that primary care, but I also feel like, like you said, you're looking for optimal, they're looking for sickness.
Yep. Yep. And doctors and FDNs, we do different things. So no there's no reason not to have both in your life. It's like we have different backyards, but they're next to each other and we can like wave at each other. Like we have a good relationship.
Right.
Because I'm not saying don't go to your doctor. I think we need people to be there in case of emergency. We need people to be like watching us year over year in that way. Um, and we need people who are looking in a gray space, especially when we recognize that our own function is going down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so there are a couple of ways you can go to the FDN practitioner directory, and I would highly recommend that you hire an FDN because I know, being a director of education at FDN, I know the standard to which our practitioners are held and trained, and we are always going to be the smartest practitioner in any room.
Mm.
So most of us work virtually. So when you go to the practitioner directory, you won't necessarily see a location, but you'll see a sort of a specialty. And so go to the practitioner directory, check it out. Or if you're a person who is career changing or you're already a health coach, but you're not using lab work, come and get trained. And you're going to run the labs on yourself to begin with and write your own protocols to begin with. And it's a great way to kind of cut your teeth and become a product of the product, is to do all everything that you're learning on yourself first.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, I'm a believer of, like, I want to go through this first before you trust me. Because I was like, I'm
Hmm.
like, Unless I'm telling you you're going to be my guinea pig.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And like most of us have some health issues. And so like you can take the same amount of money that you would give a practitioner and you can train to become a practitioner. And that way you can have access to labs forever and you can write your own protocols forever and you can help your family members and you can maybe get paid to help other people down the road if you wanted to. So I would not count that option out, even if you have a full-time job doing other things, because being able to order your own lab work for the rest of your life is quite a perk.
yeah, it is a perk. One of the things we were talking about before we hit record was just this notion of women feeling the fact that I have to earn, and I'm using air quotes for those of you guys who aren't seeing the video, earn downtime. Earn, I'm guilty of it. When I was in the peak of my crazy workout, in order to go to the beach with my husband, I would get up at 5 a.m., work out so that I could go to the beach.
Yep. I do think that we have a need to earn it mentality. And I think a lot of this comes from the Puritan roots of the United States, where the Puritans were all about like idle hands are the
Mm,
devil's work. You must be productive and busy at all times in order to be seen as pure. And if you are taking downtime, if you're not doing anything, that's sinful, that's
right,
lazy. Yeah.
right.
And that has really bled into our national consciousness. And I think ultimately, what I find as women, less so with men,
Yeah.
but with men as well, to a certain extent, is that we are trying to pay back the gift of our lives
Mm,
with our labor. And if that's what we're doing, and I certainly was doing that, I was definitely doing that. Um, because I had a really hard time forming my own kind of self-image at that time. I was highly codependent. I was not in a place where I could love myself. And so I was using my very extreme job in this very noble line of work to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, "Oh, you're a good person. You
yeah.
are you are worthy. You are making an impact in the world." That was the only way that I could feel good about myself. And I think to some degree or another, we're all living with that, where it's like, okay, my productivity equals my worth.
Yes.
Yeah, and my worth is paying for the fact that I'm on this planet. The problem with that is that if we are using our labor to pay back the gift of our lives, we can never stop working.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you always look at your bank account and your bank account always has a dollar. We're always like, "Oh, but I need more money in my bank account. I need more money in my bank account."
Yeah,
And and you're right. I never kind of thought about tracing it back to kind of like the early days of the founding of the US, but it is a very US centric thing because if you go
it is.
to other countries, just the simple things like a restaurant, you're sitting there and the hostess seats you, and immediately if the waiter doesn't come over to you, you're like looking around
Yeah, yeah,
like you should be here much faster, or like the food takes long, or like why does the food take an hour to cook? Like, what are you doing back there? But
yeah,
because
yeah.
they're working at a pace that's just a pace, like not like
Whereas in Europe, a 3 hour dinner with everyone who lives near you and all of your extended family is average. That's
yeah,
average.
that's
That's
not
like a typical night. Yeah.
it's not weird, or it's not like you're like, okay, in June, it's January now. In June, I want to have this big dinner. So you
Right.
guys free in June. I'm giving you 6 months notice to
Right. Yes. Yes.
get it on the books.
Yeah, and European seatings are designed for this. Like the restaurants know that they're going to have like two seatings a night, and that the dinner is going to be 2.5 hours at each one. Whereas in the U.S., we want tables to turn over within an hour.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's really uh yeah, to your point, it's just this expectation of like, don't waste my time. I've got things to do. I need to be somewhere. eating is just an act
Yes.
that I'm doing to keep myself alive. It should not actually come with any pleasure or mitigation of stress.
Right. Or I can give myself some time to have this meal, but it has to be an occasion. Like it's our anniversary, it's my birthday, like it
Right,
has to be an occasion that I could take the leisure versus a
right,
Tuesday.
right, right. Exactly,
And so,
exactly.
so I'm listening to this and I know that I still kind of struggle with that whisper in my ear, but I like the idea of using this as an experiment. So it's like kind of when we recognize when we get to the point of like it's a Saturday and you're like, well, I have nothing to do today. Like, why do I just sit down and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
maybe I learned to knit. I don't know, but it's
Or I
like
like go to a coffee shop and read a book or yeah.
right, it's like to
Yeah.
find something that I find pleasure, and I feel that a lot of us don't have hobbies.
Yep. Our family has become our hobby, or our children have become our hobbies, and we have forgotten what gives us joy and pleasure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I like the idea of kind of like this 30-day kind of experiment. Like maybe
Yeah.
you do learn to knit. Maybe you learn to color. Maybe you finally sit down and you read a book that's not for work or for
Yeah.
betterment of your child or what have you.
Yeah.
And or maybe you're like, you know what? I finally get into, whatever the latest series is on Netflix and I watch it guilt free and not be like, I have a quick hour and I'm going to scan through the good parts.
Yeah. And like I have been wanting to get better at painting, and I'm not going to take a painting class. I'm just not going to do that.
No.
So like I found this DIY art club product that's
Oh,
basically
neat.
like an adult paint by number.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like a picture that, it's a relatively sophisticated piece of art and it's, made with acrylic paint and, something that would last. It's not like a child's paint by number, but it's paint by number. So like I can
Right,
actually sit there and like work on my painting skills and come out with like a decent product. And I find that very relaxing.
right. And it's like,
Yeah.
so it's like, give yourself these like 30 days to like give it a shot.
Yeah.
And if you still like running around like a chicken with your head cut off, rock on with your bad self.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it also takes some time to recalibrate
Yes.
internally. I think a lot of us are like going around with our internal radios turned up to like 12 or 13. And then when we turn it down to 5, it's like we can't hear it anymore. And so we're like,
Right.
this is terrible. But if you sit with that radio on 5 for a week or two, then that starts to make sense. And you're like, oh, right, I can hear it now. I hear what's going on. And it's a little bit like when you go on vacation and for the first like 3 or 4 days, you're like, I can't relax. I need to know what's going on at work. I need to know what's going on with my phone. I'm looking at my text messages. I'm still reading my email. I can't disconnect.
Right,
And then by
right.
the time you disconnect, it's time to go home already. Um, so this is why it needs to be a 30-day experiment instead of like a 6 or 7 day experiment, is because you've got to give yourself time to recalibrate to that new normal.
Yeah, 100%, and I absolutely love that. And one of the things I've been like really like exploring are these it's like it's a new trend right now about going analog. And so it's kind of like, like the word find books and just all the things that don't require you to be tethered to some type of electronic device or tethered to your phone. So like, the paint by number would be a perfect example. Like you're sitting there and you're painting and maybe you're listening to some like soothing music, or maybe
Absolutely.
you're
Yes.
just like finally like tuning in with like breathing or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of lost in your thoughts.
Yeah. You're not looking at a screen. You're not wondering who's messaging you or not messaging you. Yeah. You're just unplugging for a minute.
Right. And sometimes I always tell people like I always had the best thoughts when I used to take public transportation or you take a shower, like maybe something that you've been like kind of stuck in, if we're in these kind of like painting or knitting or just being, some of the problems might not seem so big.
Yeah, for sure. I think of that sort of like mental liminal space. With the physical liminal space is like, when you're moving through an airport or when you're waiting for an elevator, you're on the elevator, things like that. These sort of points between point A and B is where these ideas occur to us when we're in physical space. And so if we can put ourselves in that liminal space mentally, like I'm not thinking about project A or B, I'm thinking about my paint by number.
Right,
And
exactly.
then
And
and
you're
then
like,
yeah. And then new ideas come.
right.
Yeah.
This I've absolutely enjoyed this conversation so much because it really is it comes to roost all the things we talk that I always talk about that I try to find guests to talk about that it's just like we have to figure out our lifestyle and then let all the other kind of things fall into place. But if I'm not sleeping, if I'm always a stress ball, if I'm trying to always be on a diet, like I'm always going to
Yeah.
be struggling because I'm
Yeah.
not like letting my body just do what it can do on its own.
On its own. Yeah.
I'm always trying to like, put it in a headlock and let, try dare it to squirm away from me. But I absolutely love this conversation. So where can people find you on the interwebs?
So I'm on this podcast as a representative of FDN. So you can find FDN at fdntraining.com.
And are you guys on Instagram and all of that other things as FDN training?
I don't know
Don't
our
worry,
social
I
handles
have that
off.
information and
Okay, amazing.
I will put it in the show notes so that way you guys can reach out and as she threw out there, like if this has always been something that's been intriguing for you, like I started down this rabbit hole because I was interested in like I was interested in fitness and then my body was like girl and I was interested in like okay, why is my body saying girl to me? And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely just I mean, I find it fascinating. So maybe you don't, and maybe you're like, you can always hire. I like hiring too. So
Hiring's
uh,
great. Yes.
hiring's fabulous, but
Mhm.
the door is always open to you. And before I let you go, Miss Elizabeth, I always ask everyone, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
One thing that makes me feel magical, high heels.
All right, I love it. I love it. I love it.
High heels and a handheld mic.
Yeah, oh my God, I absolutely love it. Now you miss karaoke because that's vision that popped up in front of my face.
Oh, no. I like public speaking and I feel I like public speaking on under any circumstances. I really enjoy that, but I feel really magical when I am in high heels and I have a handheld mic. Like lapel mics are fine,
I
but I
know.
feel like way more powerful with a handheld mic when I walk out on stage.
Yeah, because it's just kind of like you just stand there, you plant your feet, and you're like, it's on.
Let's do it. Yes.
You know, I have I have asked this question over 300 times, almost 400 times. I have never gotten the same answer.
I love that.
And it's always the most random things that I'm like, didn't you see that one coming?
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Guys, I hope that you took this. If you listened this far, clearly there's been something here for you. But yeah, stress. I'm a recovering stress ball. We meet on Wednesdays. Um, Definitely it's time to really just get it under control and start to just recognize that it's not just your life. And if someone else needs to hear this, absolutely please share this episode. Absolutely look into FDN because I really think that they can really help you with the lifestyle stuff, just to kind of make you realize that it's not just I have high cortisol and I need to do something about it. It's more than just high cortisol. All
There's a
right,
reason why you have high cortisol. Yes.
exactly. It's just the knock on the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking your time today. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, Kim, it's been a pleasure to be with you and your audience today. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Magic Makers, enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm going to be in your ear next week. Oh, shit. Can I find it? Okay.